The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, episode 817 for Monday, June 1st, 2020. Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where we take all the stuff you send in, tips, cool stuff found, questions. We add them to an agenda. We try to answer your questions. We share your tips. We share your cool stuff found. We share our cool stuff found and our tips because the goal is for each and every single one of us to learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include mintmobile.com/MGG, TextExpander.com/podcast, and mac.cachefly.com. We'll talk about all 3 of those URLs and what they mean to you and why you've even already visited them. Because if you know Mac Geek Gab, you know that it's our job, at least with the sponsors, to just generate some interest. It's up to you whether or not, between you and the sponsor, whether or not you actually, buy anything from them. But just up to us to generate some interest. So visiting their URLs, we're doing our job. So thank you for that. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, as those of you on the YouTube and Facebook live streams can see, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Braun.
How you doing today, Mr. John F. Braun?
Good.
Good.
Got my Hawaiian blend, something new.
Hawaiian blend coffee, huh? All right. Well,
yeah, I think it may be Blue Mountain. I think that's what it was called.
Okay.
I was out there once.
Huh.
Yeah, it's good coffee, good soil.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm drinking the Tension Tamer tea because it has some ginseng in it, which I like. So adds a little sparkle to the day without any jitters. So it's good. All right. But we like to add knowledge to the day, and that's what we're here for. So we will start with Stephan, who tells us of a thing. He says, wait, where am I here? Yeah, I thought, did you know that in preview on the Mac, you can hit the backtick key to enable a magnifier feature. Hitting backtick again disables the magnifier, useful for quickly zooming in on something without having to zoom the entire document. I had no idea this feature existed, says Stephan, and I could say the same thing. I had no idea. It's pretty cool. It just creates a floating zoom magnifier kind of thing. It's the backtick key on my Apple keyboard. It's below the escape key and above the tab key. It's kind of in the upper left there. That's the backtick. So yeah, that's a pretty cool one, Stephan. This is what we love about quick tips. So thanks, man. Yeah,
I bet you he found that by fumble fingering.
That I would tend to. Sure. Yeah. That's like, those are the things that come up, right? You accidentally, and then you're like, wait, how do I turn it off? So, yeah.
How did I do that thing I just did that I want to do again?
How do I control this new magic? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty cool. Thank you for sending that in. Peter sends in a quick little tip. He says, in Mail, you can select, when composing a new message in Mail, selecting all or part of the text first, and then holding down Command, Option, and then the quote mark, which is the other tick, right? It's the apostrophe, really. So Command, Option, Apostrophe, which is the one next to the return key, he says gets rid of or reduces quote levels of the highlighted text. And then you can go the other direction, of course, with Command apostrophe. So the Option key is the difference here. So Command apostrophe adds a quote level. Command Option apostrophe removes a quote level from text, which can be really handy if you're highlighting a segment of an email trail or something, and it's got 16 quote delineators in front of it, and really you only need just the one. Using that little trick, the Command Option quote thing can. Single quote can make a difference. So yeah, thanks for that, Peter. I like it. It's good stuff. I assume you knew about, John, right?
No, I do.
Oh, see, there you go. That's
I mean, sometimes when you get a long email thread, you may want to reduce that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is good. Yeah. All right, a couple more quick tips. This next one from Dale, who says, you can right-click on your Mac desktop and choose Take Picture or Scan using your iPhone or iPad. The phone will automatically straighten skewed images when using it as a scanner. This will then send the images to your Mac, and you can change your desktop picture or do whatever you like with those images. So I've used this in Mail before, where you can insert from the phone, but I never knew that you could just right-click on the desktop and do that. But there it is. It's, if I right click on my Catalina desktop, it says import from the iPhone or iPad. And then I've got a list of my iOS devices that are within range. I guess I've got an iPad over there at the drums. So, yeah. And I can take a photo, I can scan documents, and it says I can even add a sketch from my phone, which I'm not going to do right now, John, because I happen to be busy recording a show. Well, sometimes it happens, right? All right.
Yeah, I seem to recall seeing that option in a menu in an app, but I think it's in Mail. Later
is where Mail is where I've used it, but I think Preview too, maybe in Preview.
Or it could be Preview.
Yeah, but certainly I've used it in Mail to bring in pictures. If I need to scan something and email it to someone, I can just do it right there.
No, you're right. Yeah. So in Mail, File, Import from Phone, and then I see my phone and various options.
Yeah. There you go. Cool. Thank you, Dale. Good stuff. All right, Terry, if I've set this up right, has something to share with us, and I will do that.
Hey there, John and Dave, and possibly Pilot Pete. Terry here with a quick tip related to a comment you guys had for Mike back in episode 815. He was asking about Command Tab and which monitor the running apps would appear on in a multi-monitor situation. You got into a discussion about whether you were using displays as separate spaces. In other words, having a menu bar on either the Mac or possibly the external monitor. And there was a quick tip there that you guys didn't get into. I thought you might, but you didn't bring it up. So I thought I would share it here. So in this scenario, let's say you have a MacBook and you've got an external monitor and you maybe don't like where that menu bar happens to be. And we have displays as separate spaces turned off so that menu bar is on one monitor only. What you can do is come into System Preferences, Displays, and Arrangements, and you'll see two little blue rectangles representing your Mac's monitor and your external monitor. One of those has a little white bar on it. You can actually grab that with your mouse and drag it between monitors, and with this you can decide which monitor you want your toolbar to live on. So it's a small thing, but it may make a difference for somebody. Hope this helps, guys.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, that's a great one. You're obviously totally right that you get to pick where the menu bar is. That's been in Mac OS for a very, very long time. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this thing? And then, of course, you start dragging it around. And you're like, oh, I understand. Now I know what this thing is. Yeah. So thank you for that, Terry. Great stuff. Any other quick tips from you, Mr. Braun, before we get into... we've actually got a couple of listeners helping guide us and our consultant listening brethren on what they're doing with social distancing in terms of getting to customers. So we can get into that unless you've got a quick tip or two to share, Mr. Braun.
I mentioned this to you. I had a Twitter hiccup earlier this week.
Okay.
I'll just give people a potential solution. So... as some people probably know, Twitter uses their own t.co service to resolve URLs.
Yep.
But I had an occasion earlier in the week where I was clicking on links in my Twitter client, which is Twitterific, which I think is a good one. And it redirected me to an IP address and said, I can't find this. And I'm like, what? Like, what is causing this? But everything else was working. I was getting mail. I could surf. It was just this one specific thing.
Sure.
Here's what the problem was. And then, I started scratching my head, and then I realized what it was. Ultra DNS was having a problem. Because that's what the page I went to said. It was like, hi, this is Ultra DNS, and I can't figure this out.
Sure.
As it turns out, my primary DNS that I had set up on my Eero was, yes, you guessed it, Ultra DNS. So I ran Namebench from the command line and redid my, it's something you may want to do anyways, just to make sure you got the fastest server. So I scratched that, and now I'm set up. I think my first one is Google, and my second one is my ISP. So.
Oh, interesting. I'm surprised for you. I mean, and this is the beauty of using something like Namebench. And Namebench still works as long as you do it from the command line. Is that right?
Yeah, the version that had a GUI at some point, something was messed up, and it wouldn't display the results.
Okay.
It used to display the results. It would generate an HTML page and then load it in your browser, and then you could see, what it recommended and the results of the stats. And then at some point they broke that. And the problem is finding that file was like near impossible. It was buried deep in the file system somewhere. So if you have a package manager, try it out, compile it, and, just see what it thinks your best DNS is.
Yeah. Does brew install Namebench work? Is that essentially what it is? I don't want to mess with it right now, but
pretty sure. Okay. Yeah, I use Cakewalk.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, I'll put a link to Cakewalk there too. Yeah. Good. Okay. Cool. All right. It's interesting. I'm surprised because Google's DNS for me is generally quite a bit slower than Cloudflare's. But I mean, that's the beauty of being able to test it. It is different for all of us. There is no universal thing. So, yeah. Cool. And thank you to Alex in our chat room at live.macgeekgab.com for confirming that Homebrew does in fact call it Namebench, all lowercase. So theoretically, brew install Namebench, easy for me to say, would do it. So cool. All right. We have comments from two of our listeners that I sort of asked about this because I was curious. The first is from Peter, who is a consultant of sorts. He's a piano tuner. So he, like those of us that go into people's homes to work on their computers, he goes in to work on their pianos. But it's a very similar thing. In fact, there's keyboards involved in both. And sometimes you need to get out the hardware and crack the thing open and do some work. In Peter's scenario, generally, though, the hardware upon which he is working cannot be brought back to his office. It's just not feasible. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not easily.
Not easily. So I found this is why I kind of wanted to dig into it with him. And I know Peter. In fact, Peter is our piano tuner here, too. So I've experienced his work, though not in the last few months. And Peter says, I do the usual. I wear a mask. I wear gloves, which can be a problem sometimes when working on the action of the pianos. He says, I ask my clients to social distance. I ask them to write a check, not cash, or even better, use something like Venmo. He says, I could do more, but that's what I've been doing. And he says, oh, yes, of course. I wash my hands when I enter and before I leave the house, and I carry what's left of my Purell bottle and use that after I leave also, at least before I touch my face. He says, I tried sanitizing my tools, but it was a lot of trouble to do that constantly. So unless the tool is touching a part of the piano that the customers will touch, which he says is not likely, that's not something I bother with. He says, I do tell them to wipe the keys after I'm done with a small amount of hand sanitizer and then immediately wipe again with a damp rag so as not to damage the keys. So thank you for that, Peter. That's helpful, man. It's good. And I'm glad to hear you're staying safe and yet still able to do some work. We checked in with Ari out in the Bay Area, who is also a consultant, and he said we've been pushing for remote support as much as possible, which of course is great. Using something even like the one built into FaceTime or Zoom can let you do it, or TeamViewer, any of those, right? And he says, and if that doesn't work in a scenario where we can't do remote support, we offer a no contact pickup and drop off service and then do the work back at our office. He says, if push comes to shove, we can work on site with gloves and masks. So in a similar way to what Peter described. So thanks for sharing that, Ari. Makes sense. And remembering that, yeah, remote support as much as possible. And then, no contact pickup and drop off makes sense. I mean, we've been doing that with like takeout food. We'll get to a restaurant and my car has I can pop I've got a Subaru Outback, right? So I can pop the back of it with a button in the car and I can close the back with that same button. So we back in, we open the trunk, they put the food in, we say thank you, then we close it up and drive away. And, that's keeps everybody at a distance. So yeah, that no contact thing can definitely apply to tech support. So thank you for that, Ari. Great stuff. Great stuff. In the chat room, Kiwi Graham is saying, we have only been visiting client sites on the condition of only one other person in the office. I can, sure. Yeah. Limit the opportunity for any potential exposure. I like it. That's smart. Cool. Thank you for sharing, everybody. It's helpful. Hopefully it helps some of you folks too. So thoughts,
and
Mr. Braun? Yeah.
I got a tip for Peter. I think he's probably heard this one before, but you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
My guess is this is the first time Peter's ever heard that. Yeah.
It was an album by REO Speedwagon for those not in the know. It
is a good album by REO Speedwagon. Yeah. Those guys knew how to write songs. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's answer some questions, shall we, Mr. Braun?
Indeed.
Okay, cool. We'll start with Lou. Lou says, I've had an issue with Spotlight search since I upgraded to Catalina. The only time Spotlight search finds a term in a timely manner is when I type an application's name when results are immediate. Any other search term can take up to a minute to locate, if at all. Sometimes nothing is returned for a file that I know exists. It makes no difference whether the file resides on my hard drive or in iCloud. On the other hand, searches in the Finder return results immediately wherever the file is located. I know I could do all my searches in the Finder, but Spotlight is so much more convenient when it's working properly. I've rebuilt Spotlight a number of times and nothing is excluded in the Privacy tab of Spotlight's system preference pane. I've hoped each macOS update would fix the issue, but no such luck. A combo update didn't fix it either. I've run out of options, so I turn to you guys. Any assistance would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, so this is interesting, and he's running, well, at the time he sent this in, 10.15.4, so presumably he's updated to 10.15.5, right? That came out recently, right? No?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yeah. We should talk about that, too. I didn't even put that on the list because I haven't updated this machine. I tried to, but we'll stick with this. So the only thing that comes to mind, if I were there, what would I do next approach? And that honestly is kind of how John and I approach all of your questions is, when it's something like this where you've tried several things and it's like, well, okay, what would we do next? The beauty of a question like this is there were about 4 quick tips for troubleshooting this problem baked right into Lou's question, because Lew has already tried a few great things like rebuilding Spotlight and making sure to check that privacy tab in the Spotlight preference pane to make sure you're not omitting anything. Like those things are all the right steps to take. Absolutely. So it's what would we do next? And the first thing I can think of, John, is not just rebuilding the Spotlight database, but deleting the Spotlight database and forcing not just the contents, but the database files themselves to be built from scratch. If the database files and their indexes have become damaged, that can cause all manner of weird problems, including potentially what Lew is seeing here. So, deleting those files, which causes Spotlight to just recreate them out of, from scratch, can really help. Damaged databases are a thing. So that's my first thought. Unfortunately, it's kind of my only thought. I don't know what I would do next if that didn't work, but I'm sure I'd find something. What do you think, Mr. Braun?
Speaking of the privacy tab, I thought at one point one of Apple's recommendations to clear a database was to actually drag a hard drive into that area and then get rid of it. And that would also initiate basically what you just talked about, which is running that command from the terminal.
Well, that would remove the data from that drive from the Spotlight database and then put it back in, but it doesn't remove the shell of the database itself, the foundation of those files. And we've certainly seen, that's the minor difference. And there is a command, we'll put it in the show notes, but it's sudo mdutil -E and then a slash that mdutil is the utility that the terminal command that manipulates the Spotlight database, and -E means erase, and then slash means your root drive. Really, it'll erase Spotlight databases everywhere, which in this case is, I think, the right thing. And then it'll take a little while. It might take even 30 minutes to an hour to get those databases rebuilt, but it'll keep you posted on that. So. Any more thoughts?
What else?
Yeah.
I think, and if it is re-indexing, I think if you bring up Spotlight with command spacebar and it is indexing, I think it'll show you a little progress bar in that window. I'm not sure where else you can get the progress.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, I think Onyx has a little checkbox to clear that out. So if you want to rebuild things, maybe check that box on Onyx and maybe check a few more.
Yeah. In the maintenance tab in Onyx there. Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Gary has a question that I have no doubt will lead to an ongoing conversation. But Gary says, a friend mentioned a browser that I had not yet heard of called Brave at brave.com. And he says, have you guys ever done a browser review segment? I use Firefox, Gary says, for most things, and Safari for some others. I bagged up Chrome and put it away because it was a memory hog. He says, I also have Opera, but almost never use that. Any thoughts about Edge? He says Firefox plays those videos that Mr. Jobs didn't like, the Flash videos, of course. He says, I'd like to hear what both of you think and do a plus minus comparison. Are some better if you turn something off, extensions, ad blockers, etc.? And he says, so curious what you guys think. So, yeah, I'll kind of go through my thought process on browsers. I do try to stay up to date on things. I don't always, integrate the latest into my workflow because I spend so much of my life in a browser. I need it to be reliable. And because of that, Safari is my default on all of my devices, largely because of how battery efficient it is, how power efficient it is. And on a laptop, of course, that matters from a battery perspective, but it's not perfect. Safari will, and I think this is kind of all browsers, be a memory hog. And so, as I've mentioned on the show many times, I use Marco Arment's Quitter app. It's a free app. I just leave it running. It sits in the menu bar, and you can set it to either hide or quit an app after X number of minutes of inactivity for that specific app. So it's not like a sleep timer where your entire Mac needs to be inactive. It's, if I spend, and I have Safari set to 180 minutes. So really it's rare that I would be at my Mac for 3 hours and not touch Safari. So it's basically to force it to quit overnight. But if, for example, I was at my Mac working in Mail and, and maybe BB Edit doing some coding or whatever, Safari could quit right out from underneath me, and that's fine. I do that with several apps, and browsers are among them. So, but other than that, Safari is great for me. Chrome is, I would consider Chrome the number 2. I would say Chrome is the most compatible browser these days, just because it's kind of built to be that way. It's very popular on Android. It's, very popular amongst Mac users. It's certainly the number 2 browser we see visiting Mac Observer. So that Chrome becomes my number 2. Firefox, though, is a very close number 3 for me. I would consider Firefox to be the generic alternative browser. It's not embedded by default on any platform. It's like Safari with Apple or Android with Chrome with Android. But the new thing that Firefox has added, their own secure DNS, we were talking about DNS before. That's really interesting, where Firefox by default now will not use your system's DNS. It will use its own secure DNS, which is really interesting. And you can choose which one it uses by going into Firefox's, I think it's either in the security or the network preferences. But it's interesting. And so the DNS queries are all secure coming from Firefox by default. You can turn it off and have it use the system's DNS, but otherwise it defaults to using, a secure connection to like Cloudflare or something like that, which is interesting. Again, but it can cause some troubleshooting issues if you're trying to, for example, do some troubleshooting like you were, John, and if Firefox is getting in the way, it's getting in the way. I have not used Edge much from Microsoft. Brave, I have only messed with a little bit, but we have a lot of people visiting Mac Observer with it. We signed up for the Brave rewards, and we get they block a lot of ads, and then they collect money from some Brave users and spread that around to the publishers that those users visit. It's imperfect, but they're trying their best. I guess I don't know. Well, I've got others on my mind, John. But what do you use?
I think my world is similar to yours. So Safari is pretty much my default browser for just about everything. Like you, I've noticed, and every now and then it'll give you an alert on a page saying, "Hey, this page is consuming a lot of juice. You may want to close it," or "I had to reload this page because they're doing something stupid." Yep. So it's good for that. I've very rarely I'll have things that do not work in Safari for whatever reason. Sure. I think the last thing it was a gift card. I think a BJ's gift card. And I went to their site and I typed in the card number, and it's supposed to report the amount of money left, and it gave me like some 3.0 something HTTP error, and I'm like, what? How hard can this be? Yeah. Went to Firefox and it worked just fine. So for things that don't work in Safari, my next one is Firefox. The other thing I like about Firefox is the wealth of add-ons, or I guess they call them add-ons.
I think that's
one thing that bugs me about Safari is that, as far as I can tell, there is no video capture add-on or extension, if we're speaking Safari language. So I use Firefox when I need to capture some video as well.
And when you say capture some video, you don't mean like a screen capture. You mean download some video.
I mean download the video, It's that they have various plugins that will detect if you're on YouTube or something and say, hey, here's this video. You want to download it?
Got it. I always forget about that. I use the command line. I use the YouTube-DL app on the command line. And then you can install it with Brew install YouTube-DL.
Oh, I'll have to try that out. Okay.
And you put the URL in, and it can be a Facebook. It doesn't just have to be YouTube. It can be Facebook and anything else. And it pretty much just goes and gets it. Mm-hmm. I will caution people, most URLs that have videos will have some sort of parameters at the end of them. And that will break things on the command line if you just do, say, YouTube-DL space and then paste it in. Paste it in inside of quotes. So that process would be YouTube-DL space quote, paste it in, end quote, enter, and then it'll grab it. So your solution is probably a whole lot more efficient than mine, John. But the nice part about this is if I have a big video I'm going to download, I can just use the terminal and go navigate to, say, the videos directory on my disk station. And then YouTube-DL will just slurp it right down to there and even bypass my downloads folder and not fill up my drive and, all that stuff. So I don't know. I'm in the terminal all the time. So it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I would do at times, though I prefer using a add-on, was that if you Safari, if you view the source and you can glean what the URL is of the file. Typically, it'll end with like .mp4 or something like that.
Yeah.
You can paste that in the command, or I think you can. Maybe you can't do that anymore, but you used to be able to paste it into the Safari, the address bar, and then do a download.
And just download from there. Yeah, a lot of videos don't work that way anymore. Right. Like YouTube doesn't just give you a URL to a video file. It wants to control when it sends you the next bit so that it manages bandwidth and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Right.
Other browsers that you use?
Chrome I only use for our video thing.
Mm-hmm.
Edge I have installed, but I really haven't had a reason to use it. I used to run, back in the dark ages when they had Internet Explorer.
Sure.
I still remember the bad old days when you would go to pages and they'd be like, oh, well, you have to be running IE to render this. And it's like, why? Come on.
Yeah.
It's HTML, man.
Yeah.
Any browser should be able to consume this page.
The day that we were able to stop worrying about supporting IE6 at Mac Observer was a really good day. Yeah, it was just it got to be this a legacy thing that didn't work like any other modern browser at the time. And so the day that we made the executive decision, like, all right, it's less than 0.5% of our traffic is coming from this. Like, it's okay to stop worrying about it. It was a good day. So. Let's see. Oh, there is one other, Tor browser, and I'll put a link to that one in the show notes because it's not, we'll put a link to all of them because it's what we do. But, Tor browser is an Onion browser. It's the Onion router is what TOR stands for. It's at torproject.org. It is the, distributed, secure, detached way of browsing, meaning you're not connecting directly to the site. You are using the Onion network, or as it's called, the darknet. And this is the way that kind of works is if I wanted to connect, let's say John was running a web server. I wouldn't connect to John. I would connect to a computer that connected to another computer that connected to a computer that then connected to John. So no one of those computers knows the full path, right? They just know the path back to the one prior to them. And it couldn't be even longer than that, but you've got the entrance nodes and the exit nodes from that network. And so that way it's much slower, as you might imagine, with all those hops, but it does allow for, it's like a VPN on Rails, right? Because no one really knows. It does obscure where I'm coming from, but it obscures who I am. And it can be very helpful. If you need or want privacy, but also for people that are in places where access to certain websites are blocked. This is yet another way to get there. And if there's anything you choose to browse on the dark web, this is the simplest way to do that, because sites on the dark web don't use an exit node. They just exist in that cloud, if you will. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but so there is the Tor browser out there. It's if you want something even more secure than that, the problem with just doing it inside the browser is if the browser can leak, right? Because if the browser invokes some other system element to just go load a URL, it's not going to go through that path. So you can run an entire operating system that does this, and that's called Tails. And we'll put a link to that. That gets a little more advanced, but not terribly. You can put it on a USB stick and just boot from it. So we'll put that in there too. But those are the only other two browsers that sort of come to mind. So, any other thoughts on this, John?
One little mini tip here.
Yeah.
If you in Safari enable the develop menu.
Yes.
Which I think is preferences, general. Oh, I thought it was there. Or is it in advanced?
I think it's in advanced.
Okay.
Preferences.
So in advanced, there's a thing saying show develop menu in the menu bar, and then you'll get a develop menu. Here's part of it that's fun. And I think I've used this in a pinch sometimes, and it will help for those pages that seem to insist on you using a particular browser. There's a user agent selection there.
Yep.
And as far as I can see here, it can impersonate a number of different browsers, not just Safari on the Mac, but like here I see Safari for iPhone, iPod Touch, Microsoft Edge is listed, which is kind of surprising. That's why I'm assuming that it just catalogs all the ones that you have installed.
Oh, no,
and I see Chrome and
is,
Firefox.
This doesn't catalog. I don't think it catalogs anything. I think this is baked into the Safari menu. In fact, I can confirm that, because if I go to develop user agent, Microsoft Edge is there on this computer, and it is not.
No.
Yeah. So this is from Apple, not from not something dynamically generated. Yeah. Cool. All right, John, the next thing I would like to do here is talk about our sponsors, if that's okay by you, my friend.
Fantastic.
Well, I thought I was going to talk about our sponsors, Mr. Braun, but yet again, I have technical difficulties here. So we will answer more questions, and then we'll talk about them in a minute. How's that sound? Why did that not work? This is the weirdest
I saw
thing.
something on the screen.
Yeah, it's this video thing that I'm trying to get it all to work together, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, and I'm not sure why that didn't work. But we'll just jump to a question, and then we'll come back, because we've got some router stuff to talk about, which I really actually I like. I like that too. So we will try that again in a minute. Let's see. Jeff asks, where is Jeff? Now I'm not prepared for Jeff. But Jeff asks, he says, I need a little advice on improving my Wi-Fi coverage. We just covered our carport with a roof and a few walls, thereby achieving garage status. I'd like to play around with automated lighting, garage doors, etc., but the Neo Garage is a good 50 feet from our house and our Wi-Fi system, which is the Orbi, the first generation Orbi. He says we get signal at the garage, but it's sketchy. So I don't know much about Wi-Fi strength, but Googling led me to check my RSSI, which was hovering around negative 70 dBm, which I understand isn't great. Yeah, that's true. He says, so I have a few options, maybe more if you can think of any, but I was thinking, number one, run Ethernet from the house to the garage, a bit more time consuming and a long run, probably 70 feet before we got to a place for another satellite. Also, he says those satellite things ain't cheap. And also the run would be very near a parallel set of high power, high voltage, traditional power wires, as well as a wire for charging an electric car if we ever get one. I hear that running Ethernet next to power lines is to be avoided. Number two, I could try a different router system. Is there one with more distance? Number three, live like a savage and operate things up there by touching switches. Oh my goodness. No. We need to help you avoid that. Any ideas would be appreciated. Of course, Jeff. Yeah. So let's think about this in a couple of different ways. I will start with your second question, which is try a different mesh router system. Is there one with more distance? The distance is the thing that the Orbi really did well at, especially the backhaul distance. They really have that right. And even today, if somebody has an outbuilding, which is essentially what you're describing here, that wants to have, to throw service from the house out to the outbuilding, the simplest one that goes the furthest is Orbi. You certainly could get into Unify, and that may get you there only because the Unify systems have like dishes that can be aimed and go miles, in fact. So there are those solutions, and that's something to consider for sure, the Unify systems from Ubiquiti. But in terms of sort of traditional consumer mesh stuff, this is the Orbi is going to deliver the best results because they've got that 4x4 backhaul, which really can form a strong connection over a good distance. So that would be that checks that box for now. In terms of running Ethernet, that's always going to be your best option, especially for something like this. Now, as far as running Ethernet next to power cables, yes, it's not advised. I wouldn't want to get any electricians in trouble, but I think I can confidently say that if running Ethernet running low voltage next to high voltage lines caused significant interference, none of you, especially you, John, would be hearing me talk right now. I'm pretty sure that there might have been a quick little shortcut done for a length of run here in my office building, but of course I have no knowledge of that. There's a safety concern, right? Is that if a nail goes in and shorts that high voltage to low voltage, you will start blowing up low voltage equipment, your Ethernet. If you start running, 110 or higher into your Ethernet lines by surprise or even intentionally, that's going to be bad for devices on either end. So that's a big part of it. There will be some interference, but nothing, in my experience, nothing overly significant. It's a safety thing, and it's in building codes for very good reasons. But if you need to make a shortcut and you do so in a way that can actually be safe, maybe that works for you. You would not be the first one to say, I have one tube running to my garage that's way over there on the property, and by golly, I'm running Ethernet in that tube alongside power cable. You would be in, I think, probably very good company. But getting that there would be good. Honestly, though, maybe even simpler than that is putting an Orbi repeater, essentially another Orbi satellite, in between the two, if that's possible. Because if you can get it to do multi-hop, that's going to be plenty. I mean, you're not looking to stream, 4K movies to your garage, or maybe you are. But if you're just looking to have a consistent connection and the bandwidth just needs to be moderate, a multi-hop thing would get you that consistency, I think. So that's my thoughts on it, John. What do you think?
I think I'm with you on that. If I had my first choice, it would be to run some Ethernet.
Yeah.
Or the second, would be to get another node. Now maybe you could save a few bucks. The thing that I was thinking of is that pretty much any major vendor that makes Wi-Fi stuff also makes extenders. So I'm wondering if just getting a generic extender would do it.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe if you're going to do the Ethernet thing to add another satellite out there, but you're worried about the Orbi cost, then I would say if you have an old router around, put that in bridge mode, hang it off the Ethernet, and put it in your garage. Name it something different so that devices don't try and hop around between them, because it's really, yes, it's part of your mesh, but not in the sense that it's all managed from the same spot, because it's not, you'd be managing it separately. But if you've got it laying around, an old, airport thing, or even just, some old Linksys or Netgear router, whatever it was, that would work, I think, and save you some money if it's something that you just have. In terms of meshing from or in terms of using a traditional extender from a meshed system, John, again, if you've got one, I don't see any reason. In fact, you tried that with your Eero setup for a little while, right? You had a TP-Link extender grabbing from your Eero, didn't you?
Yeah, the thing is I was getting a crummy signal in one room, I think because of tile and all that. And
sure.
And it was connecting to the nearest one, but it was connecting at 2.4 for whatever reason. And then I put in that room a TP-Link extender, which is both 2.4 and 5. Yeah. Let it log into the network, provided the credentials, and then I was connecting at 5 gigahertz and was getting better throughput. Now I have the beacon, which I think is the better solution, but the beacon that I have, the price was right, in that last time you were here, you brought one with you.
I brought one to you.
So I guess you had an extra one.
I did. Yeah.
But that definitely solved my coverage. And looking at, oh gosh, that number that he gave. So I'm looking here, Dave. So if you don't know it, well, you know this, but I'll let our listeners know.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, if you go in the Wi-Fi icon and you click on option, it's going to show you a bunch of statistics about what it's connected to. Now I'm looking here, Dave. Well, seeing as how it's my Eero is like right next to it. The RSSI that I'm seeing is negative 32 dBm, which I think is good. That 70 is like
borderline not going to be connected
terrible
anymore. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm at negative 50 here in the studio. And the thing is, a floor below me and kind of the other side of the building here. But yeah. Cool. All right.
Yeah, now it's kind of counterintuitive because that number, you would think that a bigger number would be better, but it's not. A smaller number is better.
Well, because it's negative, right? You want to be closer to zero. Right. That's how I think of it. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. And if feedback at MacGeekGab.com is where you would do those correctings or askings or sharings, whatever it is.
Yeah. Dave, did you say feedback at MacGeekGab.com?
Well, yeah, my RSSI is high enough, so I hope everybody heard me say feedback at MacGeekGab.com. All right. While we're on the subject of mesh, it really is one of our favorite subjects, and we just haven't talked about it for a while. But we will be talking about it more because there's some new stuff I've been testing, including Aruba Network's new entry into the field, which is interesting. But also TrendNet and some others. Well, we'll leave the other brand names out of it because there might or might not be some things coming this week. Anyway, Jedd writes, he says, my sister has a pretty mediocre internet connection and even worse Wi-Fi. I've played around with extenders, which worked for a bit, but now I think it's time to push her to mesh. I personally have Eeros and can justify the cost for me, but I think she will need 2 beacons, and the $400 price tag is a lot to tell someone they need to spend, especially right now. I remember you mentioned that you were suggesting a different mesh product, but I couldn't recall which ones. I looked back in the show notes. Was it the Ubiquiti, or is there a better, simple, and less expensive mesh that you are liking right now? Yeah, for sure. So the less expensive mesh options, the TP-Link Deco is the one that comes to mind almost immediately anytime somebody says, look, I want to get mesh, but either it's for me and I need to be very budget conscious, or it's for a family member and they aren't geeky and don't really care about a lot of the things that we might talk about here. TP-Link's Decos, and they've got several different options in the product line, but the kind of the lowest priced one is a 2x2 mesh, which is fine. That's what the original Eeros were. A lot of us might still even be using, 2 radios with 2x2 things. They do a great job. I have the OG TP-Link Decos in the homes of several family members, and I don't hear anything from them. They just work. So while they might not have quite all the bells and whistles, they have some, but they might not have everything. This is definitely a thing to consider. So the TP-Link Deco would be the way to go for those family members that you want to get into the mesh game, but don't want to, try and convince them to buy the absolute best kind of thing. So, but again, I don't want to say that it's not good, because it really is good. It just doesn't quite have some of those features that we geeks might appreciate, but maybe they do. So that's my thought on that, John. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
I'm still rocking the Eero.
Okay.
First gen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gives me I have no complaints about the throughput that I get.
Yeah. Right. That's right. You're on. Are you on first gen Eeros? Just dual radio? Is that right? Mm-hmm. I thought we had you on tri-band, but I guess not. All right. Yeah. There you go.
Well,
yeah.
Oh. Maybe I should get an upgrade. I don't know.
But that's the beauty of it, right? If it ain't broke, right? I mean, like if you're getting the bandwidth that you need, it's not gonna, that's it. The extra band is great for if you've got lots of things kind of streaming all at once, and you want the extra band just for your backhaul. That's really where it gets, where it helps. But with you, the way you use tech in your house, you're one person. So, maybe, and who knows? I mean, yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, my Wi-Fi speed. So my, the service that I pay for is 200 down. And if I'm on Wi-Fi, won't necessarily get that level of throughput depending on where I am.
Sure.
But that's okay because I typically don't need it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've often said that 200 down would be plenty for me. And it really was. I think I had maybe 250 or something, but it was only 10 up here because just the way Comcast, offers their tiers. So the only way I could get anything faster than 10 up was to go to their gigabit plan. But it's like, occasionally I'll be downloading some software update from Apple and I'll see it coming in at, 100 megabytes a second. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. But, does it matter? Most of the time, not even close. So. All right, John, I want to try this again because I would love to talk about our sponsors for today, if that is, again, okay with you.
Yes.
All right. Our first sponsor for today is TextExpander at, of course, textexpander.com/podcast. I love to be accurate and I'm impatient, so I like to be efficient. I don't like to spend time doing things, especially repetitive things. However, I want it always to be right, or at least as often as I can. And this is what TextExpander lets me do, because what I can do with TextExpander is all those things that I type. It might be email responses for like customer service stuff. It might be for inquiries, in the business. People ask, hey, how does this work? How about advertising on the podcast or something, for example? Well, we've cooked up some replies over the years like you have in your life. And instead of digging through my past email in my sent folder to find the one and then copy and paste and send it, that's arguably maybe more efficient than retyping it, but it's fraught with opportunities for disaster and inefficiency. I don't have to worry about any of that. I just take that text and put it into TextExpander, craft it exactly the way I want, and then boom, I'm done. The next time that I have to reply to that email or send out like my mailing address or all of those things that you just type all the time, even driving directions to the house here, when people used to come over, I have that in TextExpander too, complete with a map. And then all I do is invoke it either with a click of a mouse or I have a little keystroke, hence TextExpander, and boom, it expands into this text. And then I can send off the email and I don't have to reread it because I know it's right. I know it's exactly what I put in there in the past. And what's cool is TextExpander updates all your snippets on all your devices so you can use them no matter what device you're on. And then you can make your snippets even more powerful with fill-ins and pop-ups and all that stuff. TextExpander is available for Teams too, so you can share with everybody, even if you're not in the same office. Go check it out. Go to textexpander.com/podcast. That's where you're going to get 20% off your first year of TextExpander for macOS, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad. Our thanks to TextExpander for sponsoring this episode. Our next sponsor is Mint Mobile at mintmobile.com/MGG. Look, I got my first cell phone with one of those big wireless providers 20 years ago, maybe more than that. And that monthly bill hasn't left me ever since. And it's big. It's too big, quite frankly, or it was. Because then I discovered there's another option that can give us that premium service we're used to at a fraction of the cost. I could cut my wireless bill down to just $15 a month and save hundreds of dollars a year by switching to Mint Mobile. And for anyone out there who's looking to save without sacrificing service, switching to Mint Mobile is a no-brainer. We've been using this here at Mac Geek Gab Central in various ways for the last year, maybe even a little bit more. The service has proved to be good everywhere that we've traveled. It just works. The app that they have makes managing everything really easy. You've got to check this out. Every plan comes with unlimited nationwide talk and text plus crazy fast 4G LTE. You can use your own phone with Mint Mobile. Of course, you keep all your same phone number and your contacts. It works with visual voicemail and all the Apple stuff that matters. And if you're not 100% satisfied, Mint Mobile's got you covered with their 7-day money-back guarantee. So to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, Go to mintmobile.com/MGG. That's mintmobile.com/MGG. Cut your wireless bill down to just $15 a month. One more time at mintmobile.com/MGG. Our thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode. CacheFly. You've heard us talk about them for over a decade because CacheFly is what allows us to get the show from us to you. Well, they also do some other things. They've got a web optimization engine there. And with it, all of your content will be optimized before it's delivered to visitors without requiring any development effort from you. With the recent addition of CacheFly's flexible edge application platform and their implementation services, their capabilities reach far beyond those of a traditional CDN that's just pushing data around. Their web content optimization solution includes powerful APIs for solving all your content distribution problems, on-the-fly next-gen image optimization, application load balancing, smart asset delivery. Look, if your website is directly tied to your revenue, and it is if you're in business, you want to optimize your site's content to guarantee the best user experience and to make all those search engines happy because your site's responding quickly. The good people at CacheFly are even going to provide a free optimization consultation for listeners of Mac Geek Gab. That's right, just for you. Know exactly where your site stands today with a Lighthouse score report and learn how CacheFly's web optimization solution can help add 60 points instantly to your score. Go to mac.cachefly.com. That's mac.cachefly.com. Our thanks to CacheFly for getting the show from us to you and for sponsoring this episode. All right, John. Well, I want to keep talking about routers, if that's all right.
Okay.
Had to unmute. Good. Yeah. All right. Stephen asks, he says, I know you're always testing various routers. It's true. And you have mentioned the Synology RT2600AC several times as a top pick. Given that it's over 3 years old, would you buy one today, or is it worth waiting for an updated version, or is there something else? So, yeah, it is the router that I would buy today for a standalone router. It's truly a fantastic router in terms of how flexible it is. The inbound VPN that you can set up to get back into your own network. It works with, they've got their own intrusion protection, their own detection systems that leverage all kinds of different things. They've got parental controls if you want. Its ability to, manage buffer bloat and all of that, it works out really well, at least for me. I'd still recommend it, and I would still buy it. And in fact, it is almost always the router that is sitting at the top of whatever my network is here. You're right that I'm constantly testing different things, but I rarely replace my main router because doing that would require, reconfiguring so many different things that often what I'm doing is just kind of running sub networks below that so that I can test. And the nice part about that is by running a router or a mesh system as a sub network, I can actually get above it and truly test speeds in and out of that network in a way that keeps me from having to guess as I'm testing things about things like buffer bloat protection, because I can know, all right, well, I'm sending data upstream, but really I'm just sending it to me because I'm on the other side too. Whereas you don't necessarily get to do that once it is your main router. So yeah, it is the router currently that's sitting at the very top of the chain here in the house with some other things below it, as always. So yeah, that's the one for me. What do you you're not as crazy as me, John, is what it comes down to. You don't.
I'm just happy with the I'm happy with the Arrow.
Yeah. Oh, as you should be. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's the stability of the Eero, especially in terms of its mesh, system, but it's a great router. The stability of it continues to amaze me. As I test all kinds of different things, as the new thing comes out, isn't yet out, which may or may not be the case at the moment. I may, test things from various vendors here, but by and large, I try to live with a mesh system from one vendor for at least a couple of months at a time to truly get that, it experience, not just how was it for a week kind of thing. I like to forget about it, and then see what happens, see if my family complains, see if things happen. And when the Eero's in place, man, the complaints just don't, there's no weirdness. And I've got some weird things set up. I've got my living room is not on an Ethernet run. It's on a Mocha run. And that can get flaky at times. And depending on how good the mesh is, how robust it is, it can either deal with that or it cannot deal with it. And the Eero, when that Mocha line breaks down, the Eero's like, yeah, we're good. Like I'll take care of you. So it really is robust. Yeah. I'm always impressed with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Before this, what did I have? It was a choice of someone, but the TP-Link Archer standalone.
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
At the time was one that I had, and I was pretty happy with that. And that's evolved from over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, it had. Yeah. No, yeah. There's a lot of good stuff out there for sure. Yep. All right, let's stay on the network thing. This is fun. I'm glad we're doing this. It's been too long. Mark says, recently I was looking to replace a water heater and located a Rheem hot water heater or water heater. I guess we don't call it a hot water heater because you wouldn't really need to heat water.
People do, but we kind of pointed out it's kind of redundant.
It is a little bit. Yeah. But anyway, he says, I located a Rheem water heater, and Mark didn't call it a hot water heater. That's on me. That could alert me if there were issues. I suspect this device needs internet access to do so and is, in that sense, a typical IoT, Internet of Things device. I have no faith, he says, in Rheem being able to secure their devices and want to start building out a home with smart devices. I've refused so far until I could build it first with the proper security. Budget is negotiable, so I'd be willing to spend up to $1,000. He says, I'd like to have the devices logically and physically separated. So I'm thinking that my setup would go from the cable modem to a switch. And from there, I would hang 2 Wi-Fi routers off the switch. One is for IoT, one is for family devices, perhaps different VLANs. All items would need internet access, but should stay separate in any other way possible. I'd love to know if you're doing something like this at home and would appreciate any advice, maybe even a deep dive. So I would open this up, and I would love to hear what other folks are doing here. But there's a few options. The first is that if you have a residential cable modem with residential, or cable modems aren't necessarily residential or commercial, but if you have residential cable service, your switch idea would probably not work. It would work from a hardware standpoint, but your normal level of residential service only provides one IP address. And for what you're describing, essentially, bifurcating your signal and having one go for, your IoT stuff and one go for the rest of your stuff, that's not going to work. However, there are some options. Because and it wouldn't work because you only get one IP address. You could see if your cable company will let you have a second IP address, in which case, then yes, that would work. But there are other options. You could get a business account, which would certainly let you do that and get that extra IP, but you might wind up paying a whole lot more for a whole lot less speed. You could use the guest network on your router. In general, guest networks are built to do almost exactly what you're talking about here, where you're offering a Wi-Fi network, but it is isolated as a VLAN from the rest of your devices. So that might well be a good way to go for you here. And that, again, depending on the router and depending on how it's being done, that can be done very well. Most of the mesh products that we've talked about here truly do manage that VLAN as a separate thing, even across the mesh, which is not entirely the easiest thing to implement. So that's another option. Number 3 that comes to mind is many ISPs will offer you a residential gateway. And that's a device that's not just a cable modem, but is a cable modem, a router, a wireless access point, and a switch. And oftentimes we're talking about put that into bridge mode so that you don't have to deal with the, the extra double NAT of that whole thing. However, if you do let that be its own router and Wi-Fi access point and switch, you could connect your IoT devices to that and then hang your personal network off of that. And now everything's going to be fine. You will be inheriting a double NAT setup with that. And you might need to do listen to last week's episode when we talked about DMZs and managing that double NAT in a effective way. But many things now are fine with double NAT. So it might not even be an issue. You might not even need to go back and listen last week. So those are my thoughts on that. But John, I'm curious to, I will say I don't do any of this. I really don't think you need to split your Wi-Fi for your IoT devices. What I do think you should have is a router that is paying attention to what the devices on your network are doing and will report to you when things don't go right. The Synology router that we talked about, the RT2600AC, has this in it. And I do occasionally get reports. Thankfully, I've never had one that's like, oh my gosh, your thermostat is compromised. But I get these little reports from it. Eero, you can sign up for their, I forget what the name of the program is, but it's their extra secure thing. I think you pay about $100 a year for it. And that will monitor your network, including your IoT devices for known threats and heuristics for patterns and things like that. So I really think this is the right way to do this. I don't think you need to bifurcate your network. But again, it's not like bifurcating your network will solve this problem. It's just, I just don't think it's necessary given what I'm seeing in today's world. So that's me. Mr. Braun.
I would say most, not all, but most of my IoT devices, bulbs and thermostats and all that, I have going through a smart home hub, the Samsung Smart Things.
Sure.
That could be another consideration if you're thinking of building Internet of Things network is, kind of use that as your firewall, if you will, though it's not really act as a firewall. But the thing is, you really, the only downside with any of these, cloud-based smart home hubs is that they're typically cloud-based. And if someone figured out my username and password, then hooray, they'd be able to access all my devices.
They can turn your lights on and off. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Or, maybe access, my cameras and stuff. And there has been reports of vendors who didn't properly protect their login, like allowing someone to, just beat up on the, a certain account. It's like, yeah. And I think that there were cases of this in the past where people were able to get into someone's network because it allowed multiple invalid logins.
Got it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Now, the other thing I found, Dave, I haven't run this yet. It's on my phone and I'm trying to recall why I didn't use it. But I found this article. So it came out earlier this year, but it's what is it called here? So Carnegie Mellon. So the guys there, I think they know a bit about security and computings, right?
I happen to know. I happen to know that the multi-touch interface was created at Carnegie Mellon back, I want to say, in the late 70s. And I can say this with great confidence because I actually know the guy that created it, Dean Rubine. He's a neighbor, but So yes, Carnegie Mellon has a long history, of this stuff. Yeah,
so they have something here that I have that I have installed on my phone, and I don't know again why I haven't run it yet. I think it set off some alarms, but it's called the Internet of Things Assistant app, and it's for iOS and Android. And apparently it gives you a view of what is happening with your various IoT devices. So I'll have to get back to you on why I didn't run it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, to mention another device to let you know what's happening, Thingbox. I've been pretty happy with...
Totally. Yes.
I've been doing, along with, it's similar to Eero in that sometimes I'll have both Eero and Fingbox say, hey, here's something I haven't seen in a while or I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. The Fingbox will do some level of that kind of IoT-centric security because it's being, I would assume it operates in what is generally called promiscuous mode. So it's seeing all the traffic on your network and sort of paying attention and trying to report what it does. It's not your routers, so things could get by it. But yeah, that's another layer there for sure. Yeah, good thinking, man. Yep.
Yeah, it kind of weirded me out when I got it and looking at the setup. Yeah, I thought about this too because I'm like, wait, it only has one Ethernet port. How can it monitor all my traffic?
Right.
I thought it would have two.
Yeah. Right.
One, the data goes in and then it, chugs on it and then the data goes out. But that's not the way it works. So.
That's not the way this works. And that's why things can get past the Fingbox. Whereas your router, if it's doing that, intrusion protection, intrusion detection system, IPS-IDS is what that's called, or referred to in general terms. But yeah, that's good. It's good. Cool. All right. One more thing on networks. Is that okay, John, before we get to some cool stuff on? Where are we on time? Oh, well, yeah, okay. We're basking today. Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're at 1:10. All right. We will move here then because we're having fun. Andrew brings us to a question that's similar. He asks, he says, after too much congestion on our home network, we added a FiOS 200 by 200 megabit per second residential line to our existing Optimum Cablevision 200 down 40 up line. So they have what you have, and then they've added a symmetric 200 by 200 FiOS line to it. He says, we have two people who need very good bandwidth, so are both hardwired. And all of our Wi-Fi devices in the house run through a Netgear Wi-Fi router. Here's the question. If we cancel our Optimum account, can we somehow configure our Netgear AC 2400 router to do the following? Number one, sandbox about 100 megabits per second up and down for one wired user, so it's almost like they have their own line like it is now. Number two, sandbox another 50 megabits per second or so for the other wired user. And then number three, let all the wireless devices share the other 50 megabits per second up and down. The key, he says, is to not disrupt the quality of service for the two wired users. By the way, he says, I can also add $30 to my monthly bill and double my speeds from 200 to 400. Do you see any advantage to this? Well, bragging rights would be the advantage. John and I will both be extremely jealous of that. So in a good way. This is the one kind of jealousy that I think is okay, maybe. He says, I think you, anyway. Yeah. Okay. So these are good questions. So on that router, no, at least not with its stock firmware. I don't think there's a way to truly segment the traffic the way you want. There are routers that would do that. Like the Unify stuff certainly has the ability to split that up. I don't think I can do it on my Synology router. However, many routers, including probably that Netgear, allow you to prioritize specific devices. And that might be enough here. You're talking about a lot of speed, especially with a 400 megabit per second upstream. There's a lot of sort of buffer room, if you will, there. I think it's worth trying. If you can afford a scenario that's imperfect, potentially imperfect, I think it's worth trying with what you have and just prioritize those devices in the router's priority list, which, again, some routers have, some routers don't. But I think that Netgear router does. And also, even if it doesn't have the priority list, employ the router's QoS settings. Now, QoS is a broad term. What we're talking about here in terms of segmenting the network and prioritizing devices, that's one kind of QoS, and it's an important one, QoS being quality of service. The other type of QoS that we more commonly refer to here is the upstream, WAN-based QoS, making sure that the bandwidth available from your internet provider is not being hogged up by any one device. While that isn't, well, what the way most routers implement that isn't going to let you get as granular as you want. If you do employ that, then you probably will get an experience that is no different from the experience that you want, meaning everybody just has bandwidth all the time and no one person can hog it up and make it slow for everybody else. So I think I would try that first, because I'm not in a dissimilar scenario. Like right now, I need to know that this computer is going to have a direct line to John without any interruption, because we can't have any additional latency. Obviously, there's some. But now also this computer is streaming both to Facebook and YouTube simultaneously, as well as to our audio stream that we've had forever at live.macgeekgab.com. So I need real quality of service here. I also know that at this moment in time, my son is on a Zoom call with a worldwide debate tournament. He also needs good quality, right? Neither one of us can be sacrificed for the other. And as far as I can tell, nobody's beating down my door or anything. So we're not having any problems here, and neither is he. And I'm not doing any specific segmenting. I'm just building my network in a way that will ensure quality of service for all devices. And it seems to work out. So again, I think you might be okay, but you need to test it for sure. So I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Braun?
Yeah, I don't really deploy quality of service. If I needed to, though.
Yep.
Although the Eero, I don't think really supports it.
It does.
Okay.
It supports the queuing management for the buffer bloat, the upstream stuff for the thing I'm talking about here. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Your switch, if you have a smart switch, if you have a dumb switch, then it probably doesn't have QoS. It just moves. But yeah, the one that I have, does have quality of service settings, but that's of course only for hardwired devices.
But it doesn't have to be. I mean, so in your scenario, if you just bought a smart switch, which is only going to cost you a couple $100 maybe, you could put a router at the top, not your Eero, and I'll explain why in a minute. But you put your router at the top, and don't turn on, if your router has Wi-Fi in it, turn it off so that there's no Wi-Fi signal coming from your router, right? So you've got that coming in, cable modem to router to smart switch. Now you use the smart switch to do your network segmenting. So the two Ethernet lines that each need to have 100 megabits per second or 50 megabits, whatever that is, you segment those out in the configuration page for the smart switch, and you let them have it. And then you hang your Eero in bridge mode off of a third port of the switch and segment that for 50 megabits per second. And now your that would be the way to do this. You're totally right.
Okay.
Right? Like, I think that would work.
Sure.
Yeah. As long as your smart switch lets you have that granular control, which it sounds like it does. Which one do you have? You have a TP-Link smart switch, or is it a Netgear? I think it's a TP-Link. But there's lots of them. So.
Yeah, let's log into it. Yeah, it's a TP-Link.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I searched for TP-Link smart switches, and what comes up, to put it in the show notes for you all, of course, and what comes up is the CASA smart switches for your house, like the actual electrical switches, not Ethernet switches. So yeah,
look at this stuff here. So yeah, there's a QoS tab. So it's the TLSG1024DE.
Okay.
But there's a QoS tab, and it has, there's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
Port based, 802.1p based, whatever that is. DSCP8. Wow.
Cool.
And then it has bandwidth control and storm control, which I guess is another nice feature to have. Yeah, some storm control, I think, is if some device starts barfing data on your network, it will limit it. And
sure.
Actually, right now, mine is disabled. Maybe I should enable it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I have some cool stuff found to go through, John. The first is, really, it's two things that very much feel like they're built from the same core. And these are both CableMatters and Kensington have these combo Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C hybrid docks. And what makes them hybrid is that they can be connected to either a Thunderbolt 3 device or a USB-C host device. And then from there, you get all kinds of ports with it because that's what a dock is good for. You can, with these, you can connect two 4K displays, both USB-C and USB 3.1 peripherals. It's got a wired Ethernet port, audio in it. And again, it's a Thunderbolt 3 dock. Or if you don't have Thunderbolt 3, it'll connect as a USB dock, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. So, and I looked at pricing on these. They have, it's cool. It really seems to be built for a laptop just based on the form factor, because the upstream port, if you will, is on what I would call the front of the device. And then it's got a USB port, outbound port on there. It'll do 60 watts of power delivery. So great for that. And then the gigabit port, another two USB-A ports on the back, a USB-C port on the back, and then actually two USB-C ports on the back, and for connection to hard drives. And these are 3.1 ports. Yep, and then two display ports on the back, so you can connect up to two 4K displays on this. So it's a pretty cool thing. Again, the models from both CableMatters and Kensington look to be very, very similar. So Kensington does add their Kensington Secure thing on the side of the case of this dock, which doesn't surprise me because it's Kensington. Does seem to come with a bit of a price premium though, because it looks like I can get the CableMatters one for about $200, and the Kensington one is $259. So unless you need that security port, the CableMatters one is probably going to be the right one for you. But it's a cool little, it's a cool little dock. It does not have the ability to daisy chain Thunderbolt, so it would be the end of that particular line of your Thunderbolt chain. So if you don't need other Thunderbolt devices, fine, hang your USB hard drives and all that off of this. But just be aware of that. It's obviously been part of the conversation here, is intentionally choosing devices so that you know where your Thunderbolt chain would sort of logically end. So anyway, pretty cool. Another crazy thing that I've been checking out. Well, first, do you have any questions on that one, John? No. Another crazy thing that I've been checking out. We all like battery packs, right, for our phones. And now we can even get battery packs for our computers. Well, Defense took this to the logical, I don't want to say extreme, but maybe at defensebrand.com, their Defense Titan. Now it's a $300 power station. John, this thing is about the size of a small car battery. It's got 200 watts. It's got 224 watt hours of capacity. It's got 4 USB-C ports on it, 3 USB-A, 1 USB-C, and the USB-C can be used for outbound power or inbound power. It has a car, I would call it the cigarette lighter adapter on it that you can connect to things that need to be powered with that. And it's got an AC port on it. So you can plug in anything that would need AC power into this thing, and it's got a 200 watt inverter on it, so it can push out a decent amount of power. It says it'll peak up to 250, which is pretty amazing. So if if you're camping or anything this summer, which I know a lot of us are going to wind up doing, this would be a handy thing to have, especially if you need to bring your CPAP machine or something with you, or whatever, your pumps and all that stuff. Like, this battery, it's kind of a cool thing, man. So I don't know. When I first looked at it, I was like, how does this even fit in the show? And then the more I dealt with it, I was like, wait a minute, this is actually kind of the logical extreme of all of our battery packs. So I don't know, pretty good, huh, John?
I like the that it has the wall current 120. That's a nice feature.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, well, I answered my question by looking at the specs. It weighs 10 pounds, so it's not. Yeah, it's probably not going to go in your travel bag, but maybe it will. Well,
it certainly wouldn't be going in your checked luggage on an airplane.
Oh, right, because it's lithium ion.
Yeah, it's a lithium ion battery. But for camping, or even if you're doing things out in your, I know a lot of us are thinking about different ways of using our yards more this summer than we have in the past. And so if you want to bring your projector out in the yard and all of that, like this thing could power it easily, no problem. And charge your phone that's maybe feeding the movie to the projector, right? So it's a pretty, like I said, when I first started looking at this thing, I was like, what am I going to use this? And then suddenly in the last week, I was like, wait a minute. I know exactly how me and lots of other people would use something exactly like this. So that's how it made it onto the list of cool stuff found. So anyway, there you go. I do want to, we had somebody in the chat room a couple of minutes ago, John, asked, do you guys have a Patreon set up for Mac Geek Gab? And the answer is no, with a huge asterisk. And the only reason we don't have a Patreon set up is because Patreon didn't exist when you all convinced us to roll out our premium subscription offering. So we kind of sort of rolled our own Patreon style thing. And you can go to MacGeekGab.com. You can go to MacGeekGab.com/premium, which even gets you further. But there's a link at MacGeekGab.com that shows you how it all works. You can contribute one-time amount. You can contribute on a monthly basis, on a 6-month basis. Really, we kind of try to make it as flexible for you all as you want. And it is 100% voluntary. It does get you access to that premium at MacGeekGab.com email address, which we do prioritize when those come in so that, we're giving you a little something extra. But like I've always said, our goal is for everybody to learn at least 5 new things. And part of that is we really do try every week and almost always succeed to answer every question that comes in. But if you are in a position to support us and you want to, MacGeekGab.com/premium is where you go. And with that, I would like to go through and talk about the folks whose contributions have come in this week. And that's James from Melville, Joseph from Marietta, Andrew from Piscataway, Monroe from Morgantown, Stephen from Cullompton. I think I got that right. Cullompton. Yeah. All right, cool. Robert from Columbiana, Stephen from Plainfield, Stephen S., who has had a subscription so long we don't have your address on file, which is okay. Tim from St. Augustine, somebody from Orlando, and don't even know their name. Wow, it's like Mr. X. There you go. Or Miss X. I have no idea. Les from New Haven, Brent from Philadelphia, Michael from Attleboro, Peter from Oslo, David from Gloucester, and Robert from Clearwater. So thank you to all of you whose contributions have come in this week. You rock. All right, John, I think that's all we got. You got anything else, my friend? Or are we not
at the moment.
Okay.
You never know.
Well, you never know, but I mean, sometimes and when you know. I don't know. Yes. So we've told you how to contact us. Go leave us reviews if you would, please. MacGeekGab.com/reviews. We would very much like that. And I've seen your reviews come in, including many of you who have sort of gone and edited past reviews. That counts too. It really helps. So MacGeekGab.com/reviews. John, you want to, is there anywhere else you would like to tell them to visit us?
Well, I mentioned the Twitters earlier, so there's always the Twitters.
There you go.
He's Dave Hamilton. I'm John F. Braun. There's also Mac Geek Gab, Mac Observer, and Pilot Pete. Those are all on Twitter.
Indeed.
So
cool. Yeah. All right. That's it. I want to thank all of you for listening, of course, sending in your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found. That's what keeps the show going. That's really the fuel that it takes here, because without content, it's impossible for any of us to learn things. I mean, I suppose we could just be very meditative and maybe learn some things, but it wouldn't be quite the same. So we'll stick with the path we've been on, and we'll just keep doing it that way. Unless you think maybe next week we just have, a meditation all week, John. That's a bad idea, right?
Well, we'll have to come up with a mantra.
Yes. Oh, all right. Well, Everybody start thinking of your mantras. Yeah. I want to thank our sponsors, of course, the ones we mentioned in the episode: TextExpander.com/podcast, MintMobile.com/MGG, CacheFly, Mac.CacheFly.com, of course, Barebones.com, Eero.com/MGG, Lino.com/MGG, MacSales.com. Lots and lots of stuff. It's great. I'm very fortunate to be able to do this. So thank you for making that continue to be possible. John, we're coming up. We are, as of the date this releases, I think only 13 days away from our quinceañera, our 15th anniversary. So the world is a little crazy here. We're thinking about our mantras. It's going to take logic and compassion for us all to get through all this crazy stuff, not necessarily in that order, including compassion for the people we like and the people we don't like. So be nice to each other. Maybe that's one mantra, John. Be compassionate. Prioritize compassion. That's not a bad mantra, although it's very weird. Do you have a mantra that may be a little more familiar to all of us here, Mr. Braun?
I think I know of one.
Okay.
Assuming that you're allowed to have 3 syllables, which I think you are.
Oh, that sounds nice, actually. It sounds relaxing.
So if I had a mantra, Dave,
it
would be, don't get caught.
Made up.